Thank the gentleman. Mr. Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here today. I represent the big first district of Kansas, and as a geographic center of the country, Kansas offers excellent transportation advantages for certain industries. Over the last several years, there have been a number of regulatory proposals that have threatened to disrupt the nation's supply chains, creating undue burdens on American businesses and causing mass delays in the shipment of goods. Of course, the pandemic highlighted fractures in our supply chains, and in my view, instead of focusing on the issues, the administration continues to focus on more regulations that will cause further bottlenecks and uncertainty for the nation's supply chains. A handful of questions. First for you, Ms. Benford. In regards to the WOTUS, or Waters of the U.S., the Biden administration continues to ignore the clear decision by the Supreme Court in the Sackett versus EPA case regarding the definition of waters of the U.S. under the Clean Water Act. What new uncertainty exists due to the administration's changes post-Sackett, and did the Navigable Waters Protection Rule offer more or less clarity to you and to your members?
I'm going to have to circle back with you on that one.
Anyone else have a comment on WOTUS, the Waters of the U.S., and the impact that you're seeing that having to your particular industry?
In Washington State, sir, 86+% of the work that we do that's federally funded is addressed through a categorical exclusion. We're spending our money on preservation of our existing infrastructure, and those rules have had no impact on that work.
Okay.
When we do more complex projects and we get into a NEPA analysis, we go with the regulations that we have. We're working on several projects in that space, and we recognize that NEPA is a decision-making process. It's not a box you check. I'm all for getting to yes really quick. I'm also for getting to no really quick when somebody has a bad idea.
Yep. No, thank you. And next question is for you, Mr. Tucker. Last month, the Customs and Border Patrol briefly suspended rail operations through international rail crossings in Eagle Pass and El Paso. I know you referenced earlier in a question about the importance of these crossings. You know, when the Customs and Border Patrol did that, when they had to move agents to other parts to help secure the border, Union Pacific Railroad alone noted they had more than 60 trains, or nearly 4,500 rail cars that are being held south of the border. How do these type of delays and suspensions of cross-border activity affect supply chain and logistics throughout the country? What are the ripple effects of that in your view?
The ripple effects are significant, and especially for grains, right? Things that have an expiration, such as food. So those are big ripple effects. I'm not part of national security. I understand that there might have been an impetus to make Mexico do more, and in doing that, but I think that the challenge needs to be faced. We need to continue moving this freight. As I said earlier, there is way more freight moving north from Mexico, and please expect it to continue over the next decade. And we just can't afford to have a closure like that. From what I understand, at least from the figures released by the Union Pacific and supported by the AAR, is that there's about a $200 million impact. So I think, working with industry, letting industry know of potentials like this so that they can work around it, if possible, would help mitigate it. But there really needs to be a better collaborative environment around stoppages such as this.
I completely agree. Last question, quickly for you, Ms. Benford. In your testimony, you detailed how the cost of construction had increased in the first quarter of 2023. The cost of highway construction had increased 53.8% over Q1 of 2020. Can you describe the impact of these increased costs on businesses like yours and your ability to complete projects?
Yeah, so again, going back to the bid process, when we get quotes from our subcontractors, we're really required to lock in immediately. And so time is of the essence to make sure that the owner and everyone buys into the price. Because if we don't, the effects are risk, right? So we take on that inflation, our subcontractors take on our inflation. And ultimately, I can tell you that there's been a lot of subcontractors who struggle with this, right? If we don't tell them, yes, you've got the job, and they don't buy materials immediately, they are affected by it.
Thank you all for being here, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.